This is the Clear Money Talk podcast, offering up creative solutions for your retirement future through education, choice, transparency, and empathy. Now, your host, CEO and founder of Clear Financial Partners, Tim Claremont.
Hello and welcome to Clear Money Talk. I am your host, Tim Claremont, CEO and founder of Clear Financial Partners. And as always, I'm here with Tyler Andrews.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the podcast. Tim and I are enthused, energetic, excited. Any analogy that you can come up with, that's us right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're all just like these little jumping troll dolls that are just having a good time.
That's a nice visual.
The hair and everything else. Yeah, it's
I like that.
Yeah,
Which one would you be? I would be like the green one with the big old mohawk thing going on.
Oh, you took the good one. So no, I don't know. I think anytime I think of like crazy and excited, I think of orange. So I'm thinking like an orange, like big,
like a
orange,
volcano,
orange hair. Yeah, exactly.
That'd be cool.
Oh, they sent me down that whole volcano path. I remember that little Pixar pre cartoon with the two volcanoes that were like emotionally connected to each other. Anyway, I can't remember what that was, but we digress.
Welcome to Clear Money Talk.
That's right. Welcome. This is we're here to answer money questions, and today we came up with a good money question to answer. So you already know what it is because that's probably why you clicked this one so that you can get the answer to the money question. But Tyler,
that's right.
What is the money question today?
Money question of the day is, how can I save for my kids' education? Or more specifically, how can I save for my child's education?
Got it. All right. Yeah. So how can I save for my child's education? This question comes up for a lot of our clients. I've been doing this since 1997. I was 21 years old at the time. And I had to pay for my own college. That was my experience. My parents helped me with co-signing for loans and things like that. But I was driven to try to pay off that debt as fast as I could. And I actually did my thesis at Whitman College in my honors thesis for economics on the rising cost of tuition and its irreconcilability with that being a justification for the rising or with rising costs of running a college being the justification for rising tuition. A lot of times the schools will say, oh, it costs more, and therefore that's why we're charging more. And I get that rationale and that logic, but the fact is inflation represents actual costs. And if costs have gone up between 3 and 5% of most things, then the internal expenses associated with running those colleges have probably gone up at 3 to 5%. That doesn't justify why tuition would be going up at 8 to 10%, which is what we were seeing for all those years. So it really does come down to supply and demand. And the key here, before I go in, and I'm not going to nerd out with you guys on this moment. If you want to nerd out with me on this, you can always reach out later. But the key here is you were able to work your way. Like my dad and my mom, my dad was able to work his way through college and kind of pay as he went. And that was pretty cool. There was no way I could work my way through college. I had to borrow money in order to pay as I went, but I was still able to get it paid off in a few years by working hard and paying it off afterwards.
Sure.
Today, you have to borrow your way through school. The sheer cost is so much greater as a percentage of our overall net worth and our income, and you're lucky to pay that off in 10 years. Many times people are paying student loan debts 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And a lot of times they're choosing their careers that will potentially give forgiveness on those student loans because that's the only way they can even envision ever getting them paid off. So the real cost of college has increased dramatically in the last 50 years. And if you're trying to save for your kids' college education expenses, you do need to give them a head start if that's important to you. So this is an important topic.
It is.
So how do we save?
I'm happy we're talking about it.
Yeah.
I think when we talk to our clients about this topic, we're trying to talk about it from every angle possible. And there's a lot of things that we can do and we can help our clients with. There's a lot of things that we can give recommendations, give advice, give some guidance to our clients on. And then there's stuff that we can't even touch that it's kind of up to the clients to figure out that part of it. The stuff that we can affect that people can help save for college are things like 529 plans, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard with, Coverdell education savings accounts, which are more of a they can be very key for helping people save for retirement or for
kids' college.
Yep. I'm deviating to retirement income planning. A little bit less common these days, Coverdells, and there's also prepaid tuition plans. So a lot of these more common things that we help our clients with are some of the main ones I think a lot of people turn to initially when they first start thinking about how am I going to pay for my kids' college. Obviously, if you start younger, when the kids are young, and you're just like, I just got to dedicate a portion of my paycheck every month to saving for this thing, and we'll see how big I can get that bucket of money by the time that kid enters college and needs that money. And that's the approach that we see a lot of our clients coming to us with. They say, I can dedicate this much to saving for college. That's, hypothetically in this example, 18 years from now, Tim, Tyler, what's the best way for me to go about that? And that's kind of where we come in to start talking about those different types of vehicles for saving in.
And there are a lot of pros and cons to the different kinds of vehicles that we're talking about. So, whether it's the 529s and the education, Coverdell's they used to call them education IRAs, Coverdell education savings accounts, ESAs, and then, the prepaid tuition plans. Those three we could probably compare, fairly quickly, and we'll dive a little deeper into that. But one of the other things that comes up, a lot of times people will talk about saving in a UTMA or UGMA account, which we can touch on that a little bit, as well as saving inside of a life insurance policy is another strategy a lot of people use, and some of the rationales behind that. So there are a lot of different places to save for college, and it's not just a function of saving for college. Some people actually don't want to save for college; they want to save for their retirement instead, and then cover college out as they go. Pay the college as they go out of their income. Pay the college as they go. Or even borrowing to pay for college, borrowing, whether it's borrowing against your house or whether it's borrowing directly for the student loans. So many different ways to fund college education expenses. And it's not an easy black and white, this is the best thing to do. But we can tell you the common choice that a lot of our clients make after we go through the different choices with you. So.
You brought up a good point that some people strategically will do things within their saving and planning for college that might deviate from the average, what most people are doing. Things like saving more strategically to retirement accounts or cash value life insurance, things like that, or trying to put money into certain vehicles to qualify for FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid, and in certain vehicles, those assets are not included in the calculation for FAFSA and what they're looking at. So they're, all these things are coming into play when we're helping talk to our clients and when our clients are planning for this type of stuff. And I think it's good that we're hitting on all these little things. And it's going to be hard to get all of this into one podcast, I think.
It is. It's a big topic. It's a big topic.
So if you want more, you'll have to call us.
That's right. I guess there's that.
but yeah, let's just start hitting on some of the key things, I guess.
So let's talk about different. Let me help you visualize a little bit. If you're thinking that, hey, you made a commitment to cover 100% of the education expenses for your kids, maybe that's what your parents did for you, or what you had done for you in some other capacity, and you want to replicate that. That's a very large amount of money. You're going to need to have a good strategy in place, and it's going to likely integrate in what you're doing for retirement savings as well as what you're doing for saving for the kids' college. And if you have more than one child, you also have to anticipate the multiplier effect of 2 or 3 or 4 kids potentially going through school, and whether it's a 4-year or 5-year undergraduate experience. And then what about postgraduate? If they're going to go to law school or become a doctor or something like that, if there's any kind of postgraduate work, are they on their own for that? Or are you going to cover that too? Those are the big decisions that you have to make first. And if that overwhelms you, then don't go there right now. Instead, come back and say, wait a minute, well, maybe you just need to save something. If you just need to save something for school to help do something towards it, I think that's where 529 plans are generally, fit the right metric. So a lot of times, just getting a 529 plan and contributing on a regular basis so you have something there for college specifically can be a good way to scratch that itch and feel like you're at least doing something. It's not going to cover everything, more than likely, unless you're saving a whole bunch of money into it. But it's a good option, and they have changed it with the Secure Act recently.
That's right.
The change that they made.
That's right.
If you're worried about saving up too much in a 529 plan, and your child decides not to go to school or doesn't use it all, you can actually now take the leftovers of that 529 plan, and the child can use it towards their own Roth IRA contributions each year up to a certain maximum. I think it's like
subject to certain limitations.
These limitations.
So
there's always some flexible choices. Let's give you some quick rules of thumb.
Yeah.
If you can remember this quote, I think this will help gear you towards taking advantage of saving for college. There's no way to borrow your way through retirement. There is always a way to borrow your kid's way through college. There are a lot of loan programs and everything that are out there, and I would strongly encourage you to not sacrifice your retirement savings to save for college. You're better off saving for your retirement, focusing on that, make sure you're going to be okay. And then if you have extra money above and beyond, then focus on saving for college. As a general rule of thumb, that typically resonates with more of our clients as opposed to less. So it's probably 95% of our clients would agree with that statement. And if that resonates for you, I hope that gives you some insights. One of the reasons why it's particularly valuable is, as Tyler was talking about, the FAFSA, which I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but I want to say like federal aid.
I already dropped it earlier in the podcast, Tim. You must have missed it.
What's the acronym? What's the stand
free
for?
Application for federal student aid.
Free application for federal student aid.
It's free to submit the
That's
application. Great. Doesn't mean you're going to get get approved.
But free application for federal student aid. That's good. I didn't remember what FAFSA stood for, but I remembered the FAFSA is a very big deal.
It's a big deal.
So
Huge.
So everybody fills that out. They want to see how much money they can borrow, and that's how you determine if you get Stafford loans or you get all these other loans that kind of play. Sometimes they're subsidized, sometimes they're not. Sometimes you get grants, all that stuff. But generally speaking, that FAFSA calculation, they're always looking at your assets, and they're looking at what money you have. And if you have money in 529 plans, or if the kids have money in their own Social Security numbers, that is typically looked at as 100% available to help with school, meaning it will reduce the aid that you get from any kind of governmental assistance, because they know they can spend that. They know that money is going to go to help cover costs of college. Yeah. Whereas your retirement money, they'll still calculate that in, but typically there's a significant discount on it. So usually they'll only count maybe 25% of it towards helping out with that school expense. So that's another reason to consider saving more in retirement, because it'll hurt you less on the FAFSA as opposed to saving for the kids' college. If, however, the money is specifically earmarked for school and that's the purpose of it, I don't know that there's a better account than a 529 plan nowadays. The big perk of the 529 plans is that the money grows tax deferred and everything comes out tax free if it's for a qualified education expense. And it's all about minimizing taxes in the long run. Yeah. So if you want to save for college, and you definitely need to save for college, and that's what you're going to do, 529 plan is often a really good choice. Second to that, I would say I'm not as big of a fan of the prepaid tuition plans.
There's more restrictions. It kind of it hinders your flexibility a little bit more. A lot of the times there's state restrictions for people that have to live in the state to be able to participate in those prepaid tuition plans. So a lot of the times we're domiciled here in Oregon. So if you're somebody that's living in Oregon and you're like, oh, I want to go to the University of Oregon or Oregon State or one of the schools here in our locality, then prepaid tuition plans might be good. But if you're have any part of you that's like, maybe I want to go to a school out of state, prepaid tuition plans can have more barriers to entry for those things.
I mean, fundamentally, you have to kind of pick the schools that you have in mind when you start funding it. So prepaid tuition can be a good way to lock in the prices today. You're guaranteeing that extra cost for that 8 to 10% inflation that we saw, as I talked about in my honors thesis. You're guaranteeing that cost increase isn't going to hurt you as much if you prepay for the tuition early and you avoid those increases. But you're predetermining, pretty much where your child's going to go to school. So for many parents, that's okay. They've already predetermined where their kids are going to go to school, and that's what they want to have happen.
You're going to my alma mater,
If that's your gig, that's totally cool. Prepaid tuition might be a good choice for you. But if your child decides to rail against that particular suggestion and wants to go to another school in a different state, you may find that a lot of the money you set aside in that prepaid tuition plan might not transfer as successfully. Yeah. So that's the reason why I'm not necessarily always a huge fan of the prepaid tuition stuff, just because the kids can change their mind and then that can have some financial ramifications. UTMA, UGMA accounts they used to be pretty popular. Unfortunately, it used to be a neat way of putting money in your kid's name, and then the earnings that your kid would earn would get taxed in their own tax bracket, which would have some lower tax ramifications. But with some of the changes in the tax law, generally speaking, the earnings that the kids make now are often taxed in their parents' tax bracket, which doesn't work out particularly well tax-wise in a lot of circumstances. So we're not accountants. We're not going to give you tax advice. I'm just saying that if you do decide to invest in a UTMA or UGMA account for a child, be aware of the tax ramifications on those earnings and make sure that's still a good part of the plan. And if that was your main reason for making that investment, definitely be well aware of it. The other thing to know is that that's the children's money. You can't use it for yourself. You can't change your mind and earmark it for retirement. Same thing with the 529 plan, the college money. You can't earmark that for yourself for retirement. Once it's in those kinds of accounts, you've given up your rights to a UTMA account. You've given up your rights to that money. It's going in the kid's name. 529 plan account, you're giving up your rights to access that for something other than education expenses. though you can change the beneficiary on the 529 plan and say, hey, it's not going to be this kid, it's going to be this kid, or you can even change it back to yourself and take some cooking classes in Italy or whatever it is that you want to do for your education. So there is a lot of flexibility in the 529 plan if you know that you want to spend some money on education later on. But yeah, just different options. It's a complicated field.
It is
a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we hit on a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to go into detail. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on 529s, a whole podcast on the Coverdell education savings accounts, a whole podcast on the prepaid tuition plans and
You're right.
stuff. We're trying to graze and hit on a little bit of all of it.
Well, and it's worth looking at. We did do a podcast previously on 529 plans. If you just want to learn the details of 529 plans, you can look at our historical podcasts and you can see a little bit more about 529 plans. But as far as saving for kids' college, let's go for just the answer at this point. Let's see what we can do to answer that question.
Let's go for it.
Let's re-ask the question exactly as we phrased it for our title for the podcast.
How can I save for my child's education?
Okay, how can I save for my child's education? I think the first thing to think about from a just the answer standpoint is remember that quote. There is always a way to borrow your kids' way through school. There's no way to borrow your way through retirement. So seriously consider making sure you're saving adequately for retirement first. Focus on that, make that the priority, and then save for college second. If the money's earmarked specifically for education expenses and you want to save money specifically for education expenses, I think you would be doing yourself a disservice if you do not consider 529 plans. I think 529 plans are the low-hanging obvious fruit for saving for college. There are other strategies worth giving some consideration to: UTMA, UGMA accounts, prepaid tuition plans, Coverdell education savings accounts. Worth thinking about. Obviously, saving the money and then covering it out of your savings is a good way to cover that expense. Yeah. Covering it out of your income, if you make enough money that you can just afford to pay as you go, that can work out really well as well. If you borrow to pay for your kids' school, you're going to pay interest, and in this new interest rate environment that we're in now, that can be significant. So, not to say that you shouldn't do that, because that may be the best choice for you, but it's worth giving consideration to pay as you go, borrowing, or setting aside the money and saving. How can you do it? Well, you just do it, and you call somebody like us to help you.
Give us a call, 503-579-1000.
That's right. We'll schedule a get acquainted call with you for about 15 minutes, just chat, see if it's a good fit. We'll try to help you out as best we can in that time that we have, and point you in the right direction if it's not a good fit, because we want to help you. So,
yeah. Saving for college, I feel like, is tough. Retirement, it's like, you're going to retire, so you got to save, and at some point you're probably going to retire and have to spend that money. College is like, I'm going to save for my kids, but what if they don't go to college? Or what if they go to college, but the what it actually pans out to be is totally different than the vision we had for that? And I guess the more clarity you can have on what that college experience might look like for your child, even as ambiguous as that might feel as early as when they're a baby, that part can be difficult. So,
Yeah, and it does certainly feel good when you can set aside some money for your kids' school. I will share. I remember, I have 5 children, and I remember when they were very, very, very young. I set up education IRA accounts and 529 plans, and just I think I put about $10,000 away for each of the kids, and before the age of 5. And those eventually grew and became about $40,000 or $50,000 for each of the kids. And that was all tax-free money that they were then able to utilize to help out with school. And it wasn't enough to pay for everything by any means, but I'm sure it made a significant dent on the costs associated with college. And that work you do in those early years and the power of compound interest over time and the power of taking advantage of the tax benefits on certain types of investments can make a big difference. And it's certainly worth giving some consideration to. Yeah. And if you happen to have particularly wealthy parents or grandparents that are willing to pick up the tab, nothing wrong with that.
Not at all.
Yeah. So good luck. I hope that's part of your solution if you're fortunate enough to have that option.
Absolutely.
So that's
absolutely
great. Well, why don't we bring it home? What do we
trivia?
Yep, trivia it is. Okay. All right, what do you got for me today, Tyler?
All right, let's do it.
Yep.
In the 1985 film The Breakfast Club, what is the name of the fictional high school where the main characters serve their Saturday detention?
Oh man. Shoot. So I remember. So for those of you that are listening, I mean, you're probably, if you're a Breakfast Club fan, you already know, and
they're
like,
yelling at
Tim,
the podcast
you're an idiot.
right now.
You're yelling at the radio. It's fine. It is what it is. I remember the movie. I enjoyed the movie. I remember, I think Molly Ringwald was in that. I think Emilio Estevez was in that. A couple others. It was a classic movie. I don't know that I can remember the high school except For some reason, the name Ridgemont High comes into my head, but I don't think that's it. I feel like that's something else. I feel like that's probably from a different show. So that was maybe around that same time. I don't know. Maybe that's like St. Elmo's Fire reference or something, but they all kind of blend together for me. So I'm just going to go with Ridgemont High because I got nothing else. What was it?
Okay, Shermer High School.
Shermer. Okay.
But you could be right because that school was also featured in a few other John Hughes movies, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and 16 Candles, and so it's like they've used that school for a few different movies. So they probably renamed it.
Changed the name.
I guess so.
Well, I don't know. It could be. So I don't know if you know where Ridgemont High came from in the recesses of my memory, because I have nothing to attach it to right now. Send me an email or leave us a voicemail or something. Just because, I mean, obviously I could probably Google it.
We're not going to Google it.
Yeah,
we're going to leave it to our listeners.
Nope, I'm going to leave it up to you. You can just you
Google it and you tell us.
Yeah, so be it. You can always reach us. Check out our website too if you haven't looked at us yet. Clearfp.com is our site. For Clear Financial Partners, obviously Clearf as in Frank, P as in Peter.com. And if you are interested in possibly working with us, reach out. Make that phone call 503-579-1000. We'd love to talk to you.
Thanks for tuning in. Till next week.
Investment advisory services are offered through Clear FP Advisors, LLC, or Registered Investment Advisor. Securities are offered through Clear FP Securities, LLC, member of FINRA IPC. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments may fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Timothy Claremont is licensed in your state, please contact his office. Clear FP Advisors, Clear FP Securities, and Clear FP Life LLC are not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide tax and/or legal advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Clear FP, LLC NPN number 194283777 and or Clear FP Securities NPN number 197499604. Any discussion of general investing strategies or specific securities are for conversational purposes only and should not be taken as a guaranteed endorsement or recommendation.